When Coast Guard officer Jake Callahan discovers Atlas, a mysterious black Labrador desperately swimming far offshore, his life is forever changed. Uncovering a dark secret involving covert military operations, Jake teams up with daring journalist Emily Turner to protect Atlas from shadowy forces determined to hide the truth. Together, they risk everything to reveal a hidden conspiracy, forging an unbreakable bond of loyalty, courage, and love, proving that sometimes miracles surface from the deepest waters, giving second chances to those who never stopped fighting. It was a brisk, clear morning in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, with the sun rising slowly above the horizon, casting long golden beams over the endless expanse of the Atlantic. The sea was unusually calm, the waves gentle, almost as if nature itself was holding its breath, waiting for something significant to unfold. Jake Callahan stood firmly at the helm of his Coast Guard vessel, eyes scanning the horizon. At 35, Jake had the sturdy build of someone accustomed to long hours at sea, with broad shoulders, a muscular frame, and strong hands weathered from years battling harsh winds and salty spray. His sandy blonde hair, cut short and neat beneath a regulation cap, complemented his calm blue eyes that spoke volumes about his quiet, steady nature. Everyone at the station respected Jake, not only for his physical capability, but also for the genuine care he exhibited toward every crew member. Jake was known to go above and beyond, never leaving anyone behind, values instilled deeply by his father, a retired Navy captain. Jake's patrol today took him further offshore than usual, nearly 100 miles from the Massachusetts coast. He stood quietly on deck, binoculars raised, scanning the distant waves. His shift partner, Dan Myers, a younger Coast Guard recruit barely 23 years old, leaned against the railing nearby. Dan was tall, slender, with unruly dark hair always peeking rebelliously from beneath his cap. His brown eyes sparkled with youthful energy and curiosity, always eager to prove himself, but often impatient with routine patrols. "Quiet out here today," Dan remarked casually, stretching his arms overhead. Jake nodded slowly, never lowering his binoculars, always vigilant. Suddenly, something unusual caught Jake's attention. Far out in the gently rolling waves, a small black figure bobbed and struggled against the current. Jake's pulse quickened. "Dan, I think we have something unusual," he said, urgently adjusting the binoculars for clarity. Dan moved swiftly beside him, squinting toward the horizon. "What is it?" "Debris." Jake paused, heart tightening as the shape became clear. "It's not debris, it's alive. It's a dog," he said incredulously, disbelief evident in his voice. Dan grabbed his own binoculars and gasped softly. Indeed, amidst the vastness of the ocean, a lone dog was paddling frantically, barely managing to keep its head above water. Without hesitation, Jake swiftly maneuvered the vessel toward the desperate creature. Adrenaline surged through his veins, disbelief mingling with urgency. How could any animal end up so far from shore? As they neared the struggling dog, Jake could see more clearly the Labrador's sleek, muscular build, even as its strength rapidly faded. Its jet black coat glistened with seawater, fur plastered to its slender frame, exhaustion clearly evident. Jake noted instantly the dog's deliberate strokes, signs of an animal trained to swim long distances, yet clearly pushed far beyond its limits. The Labrador's deep amber eyes flickered between panic and determination, wide with fear, yet still displaying an unmistakable will to survive. Jake quickly threw the engine into neutral and secured a lifeline to the railing. "Take control, Dan," he instructed firmly, quickly removing his jacket and boots. "Are you going in?" Dan asked nervously, already taking position at the helm. Jake's expression hardened into resolve. "I don't see another choice," he replied quietly, his voice steady, betraying no fear. With a deep breath, Jake dove into the ocean, the shock of cold water tightening around him instantly, salt stinging his eyes. He pushed through the swells, powerful strokes bringing him closer to the struggling animal. Within moments, Jake reached the dog, whose energy was rapidly fading. Its head dipped precariously close to the surface, legs kicking weakly, barely maintaining buoyancy. "Hang on, buddy," Jake murmured soothingly, reaching out gently. The Labrador flinched briefly at his touch, but quickly surrendered, its muscular frame going limp in Jake's strong arms, eyes closing in exhaustion. Jake cradled the dog protectively, kicking strongly toward the vessel. Dan carefully tossed a rope ladder over the side, eyes anxious as he watched the rescue unfold. Jake reached the boat, muscles aching, breathing labored. Carefully, he guided the Labrador onto the ladder, supporting its weight from beneath. Amazingly, as if sensing the opportunity, the dog mustered enough strength to claw weakly upward onto the deck, collapsing immediately in a trembling, wet heap. Jake climbed up after it, breathless, salt water dripping from his hair and skin. He knelt down, gently inspecting the animal. "You're safe now," he whispered softly, carefully brushing seawater from its exhausted face. The Labrador's breathing was shallow but steady, its eyes closed tight, paws raw and fur matted with salt. Jake wrapped the trembling dog in a dry emergency blanket, watching its chest rise and fall rhythmically. "We got you," he repeated gently. Dan approached cautiously. "How'd it get so far out?" "There's nothing for miles," he murmured softly, eyes wide with awe and confusion. Jake shook his head slowly. "That's the mystery, isn't it?" he replied quietly, thoughtfully rubbing behind the dog's ears. He noticed a small, rusted metal fragment tangled in its fur, a partially obscured letter engraved on the surface. X. Jake carefully pocketed it, his mind already racing through possible explanations. The voyage back to shore was quiet, the only sounds coming from the gentle hum of the engines and the soft breathing of their unusual passenger. Jake glanced down often, ensuring the Labrador remained stable, wondering about its origins. The dog didn't stir, lost in exhausted sleep, seemingly unaware of its miraculous rescue. Jake felt an unexpected connection forming, a protective bond growing with each passing mile. Upon arrival at the dock, a small group of Jake's fellow officers gathered curiously. Among them was Samantha Ellis, the base medic, a gentle yet fiercely capable woman in her early 30s with shoulder-length chestnut hair, warm hazel eyes, and a reassuring presence that immediately comforted everyone she met. Samantha quickly assessed the Labrador's condition. "He's exhausted, dehydrated, but stable," she said calmly, running gentle fingers through the dog's fur. "But what in heaven's name was he doing out there?" Jake shook his head, lost for answers. Before departing, Jake turned to Dan. "I'll handle this. Can you secure the boat?" Dan nodded solemnly, still visibly shaken by the rescue. Jake carefully lifted the Labrador into his truck, gently laying him across a thick, folded blanket. The dog's eyelids fluttered briefly, eyes opening slowly to meet Jake's calm, reassuring gaze. "Atlas," Jake murmured softly, the name coming naturally, strong and fitting. "You're safe, Atlas." As Jake drove home, countless questions filled his mind. Atlas's mysterious appearance in the vast ocean haunted him deeply. What had driven this clearly trained, strong animal to such desperate circumstances? The metal fragment burned gently in Jake's pocket, a tangible clue to a much larger puzzle. He glanced again at Atlas, now resting quietly beside him. "Where did you come from, buddy?" Jake asked softly, receiving only a soft sigh from the exhausted dog in return. Night had fully descended over Cape Cod, stars glittering serenely in the clear sky. Jake carried Atlas gently into his modest seaside cabin. Inside, he laid the Labrador onto a comfortable bed near the fireplace, setting out water and food. Atlas raised his head weakly, observing Jake with quiet intensity before slowly relaxing into the warmth. Jake sat quietly nearby, watching over the resting dog, the night silent except for the rhythmic sound of waves lapping gently at the shore outside. As sleep finally began to claim him, Jake whispered softly into the quiet room, "Don't worry, Atlas. Whatever happened to you out there, we'll find the truth." Jake woke up early the next morning, the soft rays of sunlight piercing through his cabin windows, scattering golden flecks across the worn wooden floor. Cape Cod greeted the day wrapped in a gentle, misty chill, a familiar coastal fog drifting silently over the shoreline. The ocean, visible through Jake's window, lay calm and deceptively peaceful, hiding countless secrets beneath its vast expanse. Atlas lay curled comfortably by the fireplace, breathing steadily, for now dry, but still matted from his traumatic ordeal. Jake sipped his morning coffee, quietly studying the fragment of metal he had recovered from Atlas's coat, rusted and rough-edged, bearing nothing but the enigmatic letter X. His thoughts raced, trying to decipher the meaning behind such a mysterious object found on a dog stranded over 100 miles offshore. Determined to get answers, Jake made an appointment with Dr. Clara Bennett, the local veterinarian renowned across the small coastal town for her calm manner and expert care. Clara was in her late 40s, with a short, elegant bob of silver-streaked hair and kind, intelligent blue eyes behind stylish horn-rimmed glasses. Known for her gentle yet no-nonsense personality, Clara had an unmistakable presence that both people and animals instinctively trusted. She examined Atlas meticulously, gentle hands assessing the Labrador's condition while Jake watched closely. After a thorough check, she removed her gloves and sighed thoughtfully. "No identification chip, Jake. It seems unusual given how obviously trained he is. He's clearly had intensive physical conditioning, consistent with military or specialized police dogs." Her brow furrowed slightly. "But there's nothing official on him. It's almost as if he never existed in any records." Jake nodded quietly, questions piling higher with each passing moment. "That metal fragment must mean something," he murmured, turning it over again in his palm. Clara leaned closer, examining it under the clinical white lights of the examination room. "That's definitely no ordinary dog tag fragment. The engraving is professionally done, perhaps military grade." Jake's heart tightened. Military-grade tags on a dog found mysteriously stranded deep offshore raised troubling possibilities he wasn't prepared to face. Meanwhile, across town, Emily Turner, a young investigative reporter in her early 30s, was diligently compiling notes for her latest assignment at the Cape Cod Daily Tribune's modest newsroom. Emily was petite yet unmistakably resilient, her stature often underestimated due to her youthful face framed by waves of chestnut-brown hair. Her piercing green eyes were sharp and analytical, constantly curious, traits cultivated from a childhood overshadowed by the unexplained disappearance of her father, a Navy intelligence analyst. It was a mystery that had driven her career choices and fueled her relentless pursuit of truth ever since. Recently, Emily's investigations had pivoted toward reports of unusual activity around a secluded military installation off the coast of Cape Cod, a base rarely acknowledged officially, shrouded in secrecy and whispers. Over recent months, she had gathered rumors from local fishermen, strange sightings of vessels entering and exiting restricted waters at night, and mysterious lights beneath the waves, suggesting underwater tests of unknown purpose. Emily had arranged a meeting with her trusted source, retired fisherman Carl Monroe, who had navigated these waters for nearly 5 decades. Carl was a grizzled, elderly man of 70, wiry and rugged with leathery skin permanently tanned from decades under the sun. A former Marine himself, Carl retained a disciplined manner, but his lively dark eyes revealed a mischievous streak. As they sat together in a quiet corner booth at a diner overlooking the harbor, Carl leaned forward conspiratorially. "Seen plenty of strange things in my days at sea, Emily, but lately something's definitely off out there. Last Tuesday night, around 2 a.m., I caught sight of strange, glowing lights underwater, real deep, brighter than anything natural." Emily scribbled notes fervently, heart racing. "You think it's related to military tests?" she pressed. Carl hesitated, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "Wouldn't surprise me. The Navy's always tinkering with something out there, but this feels different. They're careful to hide it, whatever it is." Back at the veterinary clinic, Jake thanked Clara warmly, promising to keep her updated on Atlas's progress. As he led Atlas toward his truck, he noticed the Labrador freeze suddenly, ears perked, eyes sharp, staring intently toward the distant sound of helicopter blades overhead. Jake watched curiously as Atlas visibly tensed, a low growl rumbling deep in his chest, eyes now locked on the chopper, disappearing toward the horizon. "Easy, boy," Jake soothed, gently stroking Atlas's sleek fur. His reaction troubled Jake deeply. Atlas's fear was controlled but intense, clearly triggered by the aircraft's distinctive sound. What had Atlas experienced before being stranded at sea? Later that afternoon, Jake stopped briefly at a local cafe on Main Street to collect his thoughts. The cafe owner, Amy Reynolds, greeted him cheerfully from behind the counter. Amy was slender and cheerful, a young woman in her late 20s with auburn curls pulled into a messy bun, a perpetual smile brightening her face despite the long hours she worked. Everyone in town knew Amy's tragic backstory. She had lost her brother, a Navy sailor, in a mysterious training accident a few years prior. Though resilient and outwardly cheerful, a subtle sadness lingered behind her bright eyes. "Hey, Jake, heard you rescued a mystery dog yesterday," she teased lightly, sliding his coffee across the counter. "Word travels fast," he replied warmly. Amy smiled knowingly, leaning slightly forward, curiosity evident. "People love stories like that around here. You find out anything interesting about him yet?" Jake shook his head slowly, giving nothing away, but privately resolving to explore Atlas's past thoroughly. As Jake departed, he noticed a woman observing him thoughtfully from across the street. Emily Turner recognized Jake Callahan immediately, familiar with his reputation as a steadfast officer respected widely across Cape Cod. Feeling this could be more than coincidence, she approached confidently. "Officer Callahan, I'm Emily Turner, from the Tribune." She extended her hand, eyes sharp and curious. Jake shook her hand politely, cautious but intrigued. "How can I help you, Miss Turner?" Emily smiled faintly. "Actually, I was wondering about your unusual rescue yesterday. A black Labrador stranded 100 miles offshore. That's highly unusual, wouldn't you agree?" Jake hesitated briefly, instantly sensing Emily's sharp intuition and determination. "It certainly is," he conceded carefully, meeting her probing gaze directly. Emily's green eyes narrowed slightly, clearly sensing Jake's guarded demeanor. "I've been looking into reports of odd military activity offshore. Restricted bases, underwater experiments, possibly animals involved. I wondered if there might be a connection." Jake's expression remained neutral, though his pulse quickened. "It's a little early to speculate," he replied cautiously, "but it's definitely something worth investigating." Emily nodded thoughtfully, sensing his hesitance, respecting it, but also understanding they might soon rely on each other's strengths. She handed Jake her business card. "If you learn anything else, or if you'd like to talk, call me," she offered sincerely. "This feels bigger than just an isolated incident." Jake watched Emily walk away, determination radiating from her small frame, reflecting quietly that she might indeed become a valuable ally. He glanced down at Atlas, who sat calmly beside him, quietly alert, scanning their surroundings with intense amber eyes. Jake knelt gently, scratching behind the dog's ears. "Whatever's going on out there, buddy," he whispered quietly. "We'll figure out together." Atlas looked up, his gaze deep, steady, conveying unspoken trust. Days turned into a week as Atlas steadily recovered, regaining strength under Jake's watchful care. The Labrador's coat, once rough and matted from seawater and neglect, now glistened sleek and healthy under the soft sunlight of Cape Cod mornings. Atlas's amber eyes, previously wary and exhausted, had grown calm yet alert, consistently scanning surroundings with disciplined vigilance that Jake found increasingly intriguing. Every morning, they would walk along the quiet, sandy beach near Jake's cabin, Atlas effortlessly matching his pace, responding instinctively to subtle gestures and quiet commands. Jake knew, deep down, Atlas was no ordinary dog. To get answers, Jake turned to Dylan Reed, an old friend and former military dog handler. Dylan lived on the outskirts of Cape Cod in a rustic cottage surrounded by thick forests. A solitary place fitting for a man who valued privacy and peace after years spent serving overseas. Dylan was in his late 50s, tall and lean with closely cropped gray hair, sharp blue eyes, and a rugged, weathered face etched by experiences few could imagine. Though retired, Dylan still carried himself with disciplined grace, a quiet strength and calm confidence that Jake had always respected. He had dedicated much of his life to training military canines, a skill that had earned him numerous commendations and deep respect within the military community. Dylan met Jake and Atlas at his sprawling property one crisp afternoon. Immediately upon greeting them, Dylan's keen eyes evaluated Atlas carefully. "Impressive," Dylan remarked with quiet admiration, noticing the Labrador's composed stance and focused gaze. He kneeled calmly before Atlas, carefully maintaining eye contact. "Sit," Dylan commanded quietly but firmly. Without hesitation, Atlas obeyed smoothly, body still, attention unwavering. Dylan then gave a series of silent hand signals, each command growing progressively complex. Atlas flawlessly executed each one, crouching, moving stealthily, even performing an advanced tactical maneuver designed to evade detection. Jake watched, astonished by Atlas's precision, his heart simultaneously swelling with pride and tightening with suspicion. Dylan straightened slowly, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "Jake, this dog isn't just trained. He's highly specialized, clearly military grade. That maneuver Atlas just performed, it's reserved for covert operations. He's not your typical rescue or detection dog. Atlas was trained for something far more classified." Dylan paused, contemplating Atlas carefully. "You found yourself tangled in something deep, Jake. Animals like Atlas aren't supposed to end up floating lost at sea. Someone out there knows he's missing, and they're probably looking for him." Meanwhile, Emily Turner had been persistently tracking leads from her newsroom at the Cape Cod Daily Tribune. Late nights illuminated by a single desk lamp had become routine as Emily sifted meticulously through files, reports, and anonymous tips. She had finally secured a crucial interview. Grant Nelson, a young former Navy seaman recently discharged under mysterious circumstances, had agreed to meet with her discreetly at a local park. Grant was only 26, tall and wiry, with dark blonde hair and restless green eyes perpetually shifting with unease. His posture was guarded, shoulders hunched slightly, as if the weight of the secrets he carried physically burdened him. Grant had once been enthusiastic and proud, but something he'd witnessed had changed him profoundly, leaving him suspicious, anxious, and cautious. They sat at a secluded picnic table beneath a canopy of oak trees. Sunlight filtered softly through dense leaves above. Emily's steady green eyes met Grant's hesitant gaze encouragingly. "Tell me about Operation X," Emily prompted gently, careful to keep her voice calm, yet assertive. Grant glanced nervously around the park, visibly uneasy. "Operation X," he began slowly, voice lowered, barely above a whisper, "is a classified Navy program. Officially, it's supposed to monitor sensitive maritime areas, international waters, key shipping routes, using trained animals to discreetly track vessels, capture images, even plant surveillance equipment underwater without arousing suspicion." Emily leaned in closer, deeply intrigued. "You're saying they used animals like dolphins? Or sea lions?" Grant shook his head solemnly, eyes haunted. "No, not marine mammals. They used dogs. Specially trained dogs equipped with advanced gear, deployed covertly from submarines or offshore bases. Nobody expects to find dogs swimming miles offshore, and they train them to stay silent, stealthy, unseen." He hesitated again, visibly distressed. "I was part of the support crew. They trained dogs so thoroughly that when a mission went wrong, they just abandoned them, labeling them as lost equipment. It was horrific. That's why I left. I couldn't take it anymore." Emily's pulse quickened, heart aching with empathy and outrage. "Do you know anything about a dog named Atlas, or perhaps one marked X?" she asked softly. Grant paled slightly, eyes widening. X designation meant covert recon units. Dogs deemed expendable if discovered. If your Atlas carried an X tag, he was part of the most classified deployments. Few even knew about these dogs. The Navy would deny their existence outright. Grant abruptly stood, clearly frightened, eyes darting anxiously. That's all I can tell you. Be careful, Emily. You're uncovering secrets that people with power want desperately hidden. Emily thanked Grant warmly as he hurried away, feeling an uneasy weight settle heavily in her chest. She returned immediately to the Tribune, where she meticulously logged notes, determined to expose the truth regardless of the personal risk involved. Her mind raced. Atlas's mysterious rescue, the covert training Grant described, it all connected far too neatly to be mere coincidence. That evening, Emily reached out again to Jake. Meeting discreetly at a small, quiet cafe tucked along a side street, she recounted her conversation with Grant Nelson. Jake listened intently, his expression growing increasingly grim. It fits exactly, Jake admitted quietly, reluctantly sharing Dylan's analysis of Atlas's skills. Atlas is trained at an extraordinary level, definitely military grade, specialized covert operations. He sighed deeply, voice filled with quiet frustration. It's clear someone discarded him deliberately, hoping he'd disappear at sea. Emily nodded solemnly, her resolve deepening. We have to reveal this, Jake. People deserve to know what's being done in secret. Animals treated as disposable tools. Jake met Emily's steady, determined gaze, recognizing the conviction and courage reflected clearly in her eyes. Agreed. But we must be careful. Whoever is behind Operation X has significant power and won't hesitate to silence those who threaten to expose them. They parted ways late that evening, committed to uncovering the truth together. Jake returned home to find Atlas waiting calmly by the door, eyes alert yet welcoming. Jake knelt, gently placing a reassuring hand on Atlas's sleek head. You're safe now, boy. We won't let them hurt you again. Atlas quietly leaned against him, silently communicating trust and loyalty. Outside, the night settled over Cape Cod, serene yet ominous, stars twinkling in the vast darkness overhead. Jake felt a chill not from the cool night air, but from the growing certainty that he had stumbled onto something larger and far more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. Secrets buried deeply beneath the tranquil ocean surface were rising steadily to confront them all. The quiet serenity that usually embraced Cape Cod shattered abruptly late one evening. It began as Jake Callahan stood at his kitchen window, the pale moonlight bathing his modest cabin in ghostly silver. Atlas lay calmly at his feet, alert as always, dark amber eyes quietly scanning the perimeter of the home. Suddenly, the Labrador's ears perked sharply, body tensing into a rigid stance. A low, deep growl echoed from his chest, causing Jake's heart to quicken instinctively. Atlas had never reacted so strongly before. Jake's eyes narrowed, gaze darting toward the thick woodland shadows surrounding his property, his pulse quickening with suspicion and unease. Moments later, headlights flickered briefly between trees along the narrow driveway. Jake extinguished the lights immediately, darkness enveloping the cabin. Atlas stood at his side, silently poised for command. Jake carefully peered through a narrow gap in the curtains, spotting two dark SUVs parked just beyond the tree line. Several figures emerged, silhouettes against the dim glow of moonlight, dressed entirely in black tactical gear. Jake recognized their disciplined movements immediately. Military-trained operatives, their identities deliberately concealed by dark helmets and visors. Without a doubt, they had come for Atlas. Jake moved quickly, retrieving his keys and a small emergency pack always kept ready near the door. "Come on, Atlas," he whispered urgently. The Labrador obediently followed, silently matching Jake's quiet movements as they slipped carefully out the back entrance. Jake's heart raced, his mind rapidly calculating their escape route. He knew the dense woodland surrounding his property intimately, a childhood spent exploring these same forests, now becoming his greatest advantage. They moved swiftly and silently through the dense undergrowth, moonlight filtering sporadically through branches above. Jake's mind raced to Emily, realizing with dread she would likely be in equal danger due to her involvement. Once safely concealed behind a large boulder, he quickly dialed Emily's number. She answered almost instantly, her voice quiet yet clearly anxious. "Jake, someone's been watching my apartment all day. Dark van parked across the street. What's happening?" Jake spoke quickly, urgency tightening his voice. "They're after Atlas, and now you're also at risk. Meet me at Dylan's place. Quickly. They know too much." Emily wasted no time, grabbing her notes and essentials before slipping carefully from her apartment's back entrance. She moved with practiced stealth, cultivated through years of investigating risky stories. Just as she turned down an alleyway, she saw two shadowy figures emerge from the van, heading purposefully toward her building. Her pulse surged as she quickened her pace, escaping unnoticed into the maze of quiet side streets that would eventually lead her to Dylan's isolated cottage. By the time Jake reached Dylan's property, the older man stood anxiously waiting on his porch, eyes alert yet calm, rifle resting easily at his side. Dylan greeted them briefly, his voice composed despite evident tension. "We should talk inside," Dylan murmured, swiftly ushering Jake and Atlas into the warmth and security of his home. Shortly afterward, Emily arrived, visibly shaken yet determined, clutching tightly to her notes. Her green eyes were fierce and defiant beneath strands of wind-blown hair. Dylan quickly locked the door behind her, turning to face them all gravely. Inside, under the soft glow of a solitary lamp, Dylan revealed more troubling insights. "I made a few calls after your last visit, Jake," Dylan began carefully. "Your Atlas matches descriptions of dogs involved in covert maritime missions. Officially, these dogs don't exist. They're erased from all records if compromised." Emily nodded knowingly, adding her own findings from Grant Nelson's disturbing disclosures. Grant confirmed that Operation X specifically targeted high-risk reconnaissance using trained dogs, she explained solemnly. But if a dog or handler failed, both were considered disposable. Their discussion was abruptly interrupted as Atlas growled softly again, his body alert and tense, ears pricked toward the woods outside. Dylan peered cautiously from behind curtains, noting several shadowy figures silently approaching his cabin, weapons drawn and clearly prepared for confrontation. "They're here," Dylan muttered grimly, swiftly guiding Jake, Emily, and Atlas to a hidden trapdoor beneath his cabin floor. "Take this tunnel. It leads directly toward the shoreline. There's an old boathouse. My boat is docked there. Go now, I'll stall them." Jake hesitated, conflicted. "We'll meet you there," Dylan urged firmly, his voice calm yet insistent, already positioning himself defensively near the door. "I promise I'll handle this." Jake nodded resolutely, leading Emily and Atlas swiftly through the cramped, earthen tunnel, illuminated only by their handheld flashlights. Atlas moved silently, his steady demeanor reassuring even amidst the growing chaos. Emily remained calm, yet breathless, clinging tightly to Jake's arm. The narrow passage eventually opened near a rugged shoreline, waves crashing quietly against rocks in the darkness. Dylan's old boathouse stood partially hidden among dense reeds, illuminated faintly by starlight. Jake quickly untied Dylan's sleek motorboat, motioning for Emily and Atlas to board swiftly. Once aboard, Jake powered the engine softly, glancing anxiously toward Dylan's distant cabin, now dimly lit by flickering flashlight beams. "Do you think Dylan will be okay?" Emily asked quietly, her voice anxious yet composed. Jake nodded confidently, trusting deeply in his friend's skill and resilience. "Dylan's been through worse situations. He'll find us." They navigated silently along the dark coastline, hugging the shadows, wary of pursuit from either land or sea. Several tense minutes passed before they noticed faint lights following far behind, small yet rapidly approaching. Clearly powerful patrol boats dispatched by whoever sought Atlas. Jake increased speed cautiously, careful to remain discreet. Atlas sat at the boat's bow, alert, eyes calmly scanning ahead, seemingly prepared for whatever might come next. Emily consulted her notes urgently, her expression determined yet worried. "If we expose Operation X publicly, they'll be forced to back down," she stated resolutely, eyes fierce with conviction. Jake nodded, understanding her logic yet deeply concerned for their immediate safety. Eventually, they reached a secluded cove sheltered by high cliffs, hidden safely away from prying eyes. Jake anchored Dylan's boat discreetly among shadowy rocks, sighing in relief as silence enveloped them once more. Exhausted but vigilant, they settled briefly on the quiet shoreline, taking turns standing watch while Atlas paced calmly nearby, ever watchful. The night stretched long and tense, each moment filled with quiet anxiety, tempered by a growing determination to reveal the truth at any cost. As dawn approached slowly, painting the horizon softly gold and pink, Jake quietly contacted an old Coast Guard colleague, Sarah Whitmore, stationed in a nearby base. Sarah was a trusted friend, mid-30s, athletic build, short auburn hair, clear gray eyes known for their honest clarity. Her disciplined, forthright nature made her a dependable ally. Sarah agreed to discreetly assist them, promising secure refuge within restricted Coast Guard premises where they could plan their next move safely. Jake turned to Emily and Atlas, his expression firm yet hopeful as the rising sun gradually chased away lingering shadows. "We have allies we can trust. We'll reveal Operation X, but we must move carefully." Emily nodded quietly, resolved to expose the truth regardless of personal risk. Atlas stood beside them, steady and calm, a silent yet unwavering guardian. Together, beneath the quiet strength of early dawn, they prepared for the next uncertain steps of their dangerous quest, determined to uncover buried secrets and bring hidden darkness into the revealing light. The abandoned fishing harbor on the rocky coastline of Maine greeted Jake, Emily, and Atlas with an eerie silence. Old fishing boats sat tilted in the shallows, their hulls rotting from years of neglect. The wooden dock creaked beneath their cautious footsteps, each sound magnified by the dense fog drifting lazily off the Atlantic. The chill of early morning bit at their skin, but it was nothing compared to the tension and uncertainty weighing on their minds. Atlas, ever vigilant, moved gracefully ahead, ears perked, nose close to the damp, salty wood, his deep amber eyes methodically scanning for any hint of danger. Jake guided Emily carefully toward a dilapidated boathouse at the end of the pier. Inside, sheltered from the persistent drizzle, they found crates covered in dust, broken fishing nets, and rusted equipment scattered carelessly across the floor. Emily brushed strands of damp chestnut hair from her determined face, breathing softly. Her sharp green eyes were resolute, clearly undeterred by their precarious situation. Despite the danger, she had become even more determined to unveil the hidden truths of Operation X. While Emily searched through abandoned documents, Jake noticed Atlas sniffing intently near a rotting stack of crates in the far corner. The Labrador pawed at the loose wooden boards insistently, his body tense and focused. Trusting Atlas's instincts, Jake quickly removed the crates, revealing a hidden compartment embedded within the floorboards. With careful hands, he lifted a sealed metal box covered in grime and dust. Emily joined him immediately, curiosity lighting up her eyes. Carefully prying it open, they uncovered a compact, specialized surveillance device. It was a lightweight harness embedded with miniature waterproof cameras, advanced sensors, and data recording equipment. The technology was clearly advanced military grade, compact enough for canine deployment, yet robust enough to withstand harsh maritime environments. Jake's jaw tightened in grim realization. This was unmistakably the gear Atlas had once worn, the missing piece of the puzzle they'd been desperate to find. Emily gently extracted a faded, waterlogged notebook hidden beneath the equipment. Pages stuck together from dampness, its contents barely legible. She carefully separated the delicate sheets. Notes scrawled hastily described covert maritime patrol routes, international shipping lanes, and cryptic references to monitoring activities. Notes detailing clandestine operations specifically utilizing highly trained dogs. Atlas's code name, X7, appeared repeatedly, alongside dates and coordinates meticulously logged until suddenly, entries stopped abruptly. One final note read, X7 presumed lost, critical mission failure offshore. Equipment compromised. Immediate termination recommended. Emily's eyes widened in horror. They knew he survived, Jake, she whispered, anger evident in her voice. They chose to leave him out there, hoping he'd vanish quietly. Jake nodded solemnly, heart heavy with disgust and sorrow for what Atlas had endured. Atlas, sensing their emotions, stepped closer, resting his head gently against Jake's leg, silently offering reassurance in his quiet yet powerful manner. Suddenly, soft footsteps echoed quietly on the wooden dock outside. Jake tensed immediately, Atlas growling quietly, positioning himself protectively. However, the door slowly creaked open, revealing Sarah Whitmore, Jake's trusted Coast Guard colleague. Sarah entered cautiously, careful not to alarm them further. In her mid-30s, Sarah carried herself confidently, with an athletic grace born from years of rigorous training. Her auburn hair was neatly pulled back, her gray eyes sharp and analytical, yet always compassionate. "Sorry I'm late," she apologized quietly, glancing quickly around the room, instantly noting the surveillance gear in Jake's hands. "Didn't want anyone tracking me." Sarah stepped forward, quickly examining the recovered device. "I've seen gear like this before, highly classified military recon equipment. But officially, the Coast Guard and Navy deny using animals for covert surveillance," she explained gravely, her voice tight with suppressed anger. Emily showed Sarah the notebook, prompting a worried frown from the experienced officer. "Atlas wasn't supposed to survive," Sarah whispered sadly, gently touching Atlas's head. "The Navy considers dogs like him expendable assets once compromised. They'll stop at nothing to bury this completely." Jake's voice was firm, controlled anger evident. "We have enough evidence to expose this. People need to know what's been happening." Sarah nodded firmly. "I agree, but we must move carefully. Powerful interests protect programs like Operation X. Exposing it means taking on some of the highest military authorities." Her eyes met Jake's steadily, unwavering in her commitment. "But I'll stand with you." The discussion was abruptly interrupted by the sudden, distant rumble of boat engines approaching rapidly, slicing through the heavy fog outside. Atlas immediately stood alert, muscles tense, ears pinned forward. Jake exchanged anxious glances with Emily and Sarah, all realizing simultaneously they'd been tracked once again. Sarah moved decisively toward the back of the boathouse, indicating another concealed exit leading into dense woods behind. "Quickly, follow me. There's an old storage bunker inland. We can hide there temporarily," she whispered urgently, already guiding them swiftly from the boathouse. As they moved silently through the misty woodland, Jake's mind raced. Each step brought him closer to unraveling the truth, yet each revelation deepened the threat against them. They soon reached the concealed bunker, half buried in earth, camouflaged by overgrown vegetation and layers of moss. Inside, they secured the heavy metal door behind them, dim lanterns illuminating the cramped, cold space. Atlas paced briefly before settling near Jake's feet, still vigilant. Emily spread out her findings on a makeshift table, carefully arranging the surveillance gear and notebook. Sarah watched quietly, arms crossed thoughtfully. "We have everything we need now to go public," Emily stated determinedly, conviction ringing clearly in her voice. Jake nodded resolutely, glancing down at Atlas, whose amber eyes reflected quiet strength and trust. "We just need a secure way to share this information," Jake murmured cautiously. Sarah suddenly produced a compact, encrypted drive from her jacket pocket, handing it purposefully to Emily. "I anticipated we'd need this. Load everything on it here, it's military-grade encryption. Once we find a secure network, we'll distribute it widely. Make suppression impossible," she instructed calmly, her practicality reassuring everyone present. Together, They worked swiftly yet meticulously, digitizing every page, image, and piece of evidence collected. Emily carefully documented each detail, heart heavy with emotion as she archived the cruel truths of Operation X. Jake stayed alert, frequently checking their surroundings, aware that their pursuers were relentless. After an hour, Sarah activated a small, secured communication device. She spoke briefly, requesting extraction from trusted allies within her Coast Guard unit, individuals dedicated to truth and justice above all else. She turned back to Jake and Emily, determination burning fiercely in her eyes. "We have an extraction team on standby, loyal colleagues who believe in exposing this corruption. We just have to hold our ground a bit longer." Jake nodded gratefully, deeply respecting Sarah's courage and loyalty. Emily smiled warmly, strength and hope returning visibly to her determined expression. Atlas quietly observed them all, tail softly wagging for the first time since their desperate journey began. A subtle yet powerful gesture of trust and hope. As daylight gradually pierced through the lingering fog outside, illuminating the thick Maine woodland surrounding their hidden bunker, the small group braced themselves resolutely. Despite dangers ahead, clarity and determination now guided their path forward. They would soon expose the dark truths hidden beneath the deceptive calm of Operation X. Justice owed not only to Atlas, but to countless innocent lives discarded silently beneath waves of secrecy and deceit. The sun rose softly over the rugged coastline of Maine, spilling a gentle golden hue over the tranquil waters. Yet beneath this serene facade, tension simmered quietly among Jake, Emily, Sarah, and Atlas as they prepared to leave the hidden bunker. The Coast Guard extraction team Sarah had called was scheduled to rendezvous at a secluded beach nearby. As Jake stepped into the cool, crisp morning air, the distant hum of boat engines drifted ominously from beyond the inlet, signaling their pursuers had tracked them again. Jake's pulse quickened instinctively. He glanced toward Emily, whose sharp green eyes mirrored his silent apprehension, though her expression remained determined. Atlas stood alert beside Jake, his jet-black fur glistening softly in the morning light. The Labrador's lean, muscular frame was poised with silent readiness, his amber eyes vigilant, calmly assessing potential threats. Jake took reassurance in Atlas's presence. Through everything they'd faced, the dog's loyalty had become an unwavering source of strength. Sarah moved swiftly ahead, radioing instructions to the approaching extraction team. Her movements precise and authoritative, Sarah embodied calm confidence, the embodiment of a leader seasoned by years of Coast Guard service. "The team's 5 minutes away," Sarah informed them quietly, her gray eyes scanning the horizon, ever alert. "We just have to hold on a little longer." Suddenly, 2 dark military-grade boats sped swiftly around the rocky cliffs, engines roaring menacingly. Figures clad in black tactical gear, armed and purposeful, stood clearly visible on deck. Jake's heart pounded sharply. "They're here," he muttered grimly. Emily clenched her fists nervously, her stance firm yet wary. Sarah raised her rifle protectively, eyes narrowing fiercely as she calculated their limited options. Without warning, gunshots echoed sharply across the water, bullets striking perilously close, sending plumes of water erupting upward. "Behind rocks now," Sarah ordered decisively, quickly guiding Jake and Emily toward cover. Atlas reacted instinctively, positioning himself protectively between the approaching threat and his human companions. They sheltered behind large boulders, hearts racing, the intense firefight escalating around them. The extraction team finally emerged from around the northern cliff, a sleek Coast Guard patrol vessel captained by Commander Liam Reynolds. Liam, a seasoned officer in his early 40s, had a sturdy build and short-cropped dark hair flecked lightly with gray. Known for unwavering integrity, his calm, decisive manner inspired immediate confidence among his crew. He skillfully maneuvered the vessel toward shore, coordinating carefully with Sarah via radio. "Hold your position. We're coming in fast." Liam's voice crackled through clearly. Jake and Emily huddled tightly behind the rock, their breath shallow. Atlas stood watchful beside them, his gaze locked fiercely on their attackers. A sudden burst of courage surged through Jake. He glanced determinedly at Emily, silently conveying his intentions. She nodded quietly, steeling herself for what lay ahead. As the enemy boats approached closer, Jake signaled Sarah. In a synchronized move, Sarah opened precise, covering fire, allowing Jake and Emily to make their dash toward the waiting rescue boat. As they ran swiftly across exposed sand, enemy operatives landed nearby, quickly closing in. A large figure emerged prominently. Commander Marcus Hale, leader of Operation X. Marcus was tall, broad-shouldered, mid-40s, with short sandy blonde hair tinged gray at the temples, his rugged features coldly composed. His steely blue eyes gleamed with ruthless determination, a man accustomed to unquestioned obedience and control. "Give up the dog, Callahan!" Marcus shouted harshly, voice authoritative yet edged with frustration. "Atlas belongs to the program. Hand him over now, and no one else gets hurt." Jake paused, defiantly shielding Atlas, his expression resolute. "Atlas isn't property. He's a living being you've treated as disposable." "It's over, Marcus." Everyone knows the truth now. Marcus's expression darkened dangerously. Without another word, he gestured aggressively, sending operatives charging toward them. Atlas reacted instantly, lunging fiercely to intercept, knocking down an operative attempting to seize Emily. Chaos erupted. Gunfire and shouted orders filled the air. Jake tackled another assailant, driven purely by adrenaline and determination to protect those he cared about. Sarah, alongside Liam's crew, swiftly provided critical support from the Coast Guard vessel, suppressing enemy fire strategically. Marcus, cornered and visibly frustrated, barked desperate commands, rapidly losing control. Finally, sensing defeat imminent, Marcus ordered his remaining men into a hasty retreat. Atlas, standing firmly beside Jake, watched them withdraw, calmly, body rigid and ready should they return. The silence afterward felt profound. Jake exhaled deeply, heart gradually slowing, relieved yet still alert. Emily steadied herself against Jake, breathing shakily, yet her face filled with quiet triumph. Once aboard the Coast Guard vessel, Liam warmly greeted Jake and Emily, admiration evident in his calm blue eyes. "We saw everything, Jake. Thanks to your evidence, Operation X is already being dismantled," Liam assured confidently, voice steady with conviction. "Marcus Hale and his superiors won't escape accountability. You all made a real difference today." Jake nodded gratefully, relief washing through him profoundly. Emily smiled warmly, eyes brightening finally with hope and relief. Several days later, news reports spread rapidly nationwide about Operation X. Public outrage forced immediate congressional hearings. Senior military officials resigned under pressure, and Marcus Hale faced federal charges for illegal experimentation and abuse of military resources. Jake, Emily, and Sarah were commended publicly for courageously exposing the corruption, their bravery celebrated across the nation. In the aftermath, Jake and Emily returned home to Cape Cod. The cabin near the sea seemed warmer now, bathed gently in soft evening light. Atlas roamed freely along the beach, his sleek black fur shimmering softly beneath the fading sunlight, free at last from his haunted past. Emily sat quietly beside Jake on the weathered porch, her soft laughter blending harmoniously with the tranquil sound of waves lapping gently ashore. Jake glanced warmly toward Emily, their connection deeper, strengthened profoundly through shared adversity and courage. Their newfound bond held promise of a hopeful future together. Sarah visited often, now a trusted friend, sharing warm stories around nightly beach bonfires. Dylan Reed, recovered safely from the earlier confrontation, joined frequently, his quiet presence and wisdom adding depth to their conversations. The small group had forged lasting bonds through shared struggles, united by an unshakable belief in justice and compassion. Atlas, now officially retired from military service, enjoyed carefree days filled with playful runs on the beach, loyal companionship by Jake's side, his intelligent amber eyes filled now with peace rather than vigilance. Jake knelt beside Atlas one evening, gently scratching behind the Labrador's ears. "You're home now, buddy," Jake whispered softly, voice warm and affectionate. "No more missions, no more hiding. Just freedom." Atlas rested his head quietly against Jake's knee, his soft sight deeply contented. Under gentle twilight skies, Jake reached quietly for Emily's hand. Her soft fingers intertwined gently with his, her quiet smile radiating happiness. Their shared glance held quiet understanding, gratitude, and profound hope for the peaceful future now stretching invitingly before them. Surrounded by loyal friends, bound by love, courage, and unwavering truth, Jake and Emily knew they'd found lasting peace. A peace earned through courage, compassion, and relentless pursuit of justice, now embracing them fully beneath the calm, endless skies of Cape Cod. In life, just like Atlas and Jake discovered, courage and loyalty can guide us safely through even the most overwhelming storms. We all face struggles, battles, and moments when it feels as though we're lost in a vast ocean of uncertainty. Yet, when we hold tight to faith, kindness, and friendship, miracles truly happen, leading us back to peaceful shores. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment below with the word Amen, letting us know that faith and love will always conquer fear. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories, and share it with someone who may need a reminder of hope today. May God bless you, guide you, and bring you safely home through every storm you face. Amen.